Welcome to no-knead bread, the Highclere method. We'll need baker's flour, yeast, salt, a bowl to put it all in, of course, it's just sitting on scales, and we'll add some water as well. We start off with 300 grams of flour. You can use ordinary plain flour. Baker's flour works best, I find. You'll need 4 grams of dried yeast. This is why we have to measure. It's important to measure. 3 grams of salt, and then 210 grams of water when the time comes. Here we go. 210 grams of water. You just toss it all in the bowl together, and this is a no-knead method, so there's no need to get too excited about it. So in it goes, that measured. Now gently combine. There's no need to be rough with it. Just ease it in together, it'll be fine. And keep going till it combines. There'll be a moment when suddenly it all comes together. So just fold them into each other. I'm using a red knife to do it. We don't need to belt it or pound it into submission. You see it's starting to lump together, and then all of a sudden we'll get the stuff off the sides as well. It will all come together as a nice individual lump, which is probably no better way of describing it at the moment. There you go. So you can see it's starting to all of a sudden it'll connect. But you need to get all the flour up into it. And there it is, all of a sudden. Ready to go. Okay, now the next thing is to cover it and leave it at room temperature for an hour. After that hour, you use a bowl scraper and just lift the edges towards the middle. The idea here is to just stretch it a little bit, which allows the gluten to do its work, and you needed the salt to ensure that the gluten is doing its work as most efficiently. It's not a lot of salt, obviously, but you can feel it getting silkier as you go along, and you'll see with the photos, with the images, how that happens. And do the same thing again after another hour. It started to expand a little bit, but you can see it's starting to get longer and thinner and silkier. But you have to keep folding the outer edges inward. So it's not a lot of work, but it has to be done in a timely fashion until you form it back into a bowl again, into a ball, and you can feel the increasing silkiness again. And for the third time after another hour, you can see how much stringier and softer and how much alive it is, because of course we've got the yeast in there growing away, converting carbohydrates to alcohol and carbon dioxide, which is their thing. And then you leave it for 3 hours, or overnight in the fridge if you don't have time. Keep the scraper wet now, because you can see how much it's growing, and keeping it wet stops it sticking. Now, because it's full of all carbon dioxide, this particular action is called degassing, and it gets rid of most of the air bubbles. Don't worry, they'll come back. You haven't ruined the dough, but just keep following it into a ball by folding the outer edges in. Now, again, another 30 minutes this time. Prepare the tray and line it with baking paper. And we fold it into the corners so that it sort of stands upright and it's neat-ish. It's not going to matter because you won't see it once it's in the oven. But there it is. Now once the tray's ready, we go back and degas again. This is the last time we'll be doing this, forming it back into the ball. And it's almost ready to be used, which is always the fun time. So again, we use water rather than flour because it actually works best at non-stick. And you scrape the ball onto that surface and then stretch it out nice and flat. This again helps if you've got wet hands, it's important, but it also means that you're assisting the gluten to form its lines of strength within the dough. You can measure these if you want, or you can just cut it and go. I tend to be a little bit more laissez-faire at this stage. Measure is important at the start, but once you get to this stage, it doesn't matter that much. And now we shape it. So you roll it out, stretch it out flat, then roll it into a circle, and then twirl, and fold it in on itself in thirds. And you keep doing that with the 3 pieces. It's surprising how strong it is when you twirl it. And of course the third one there, a little bit out of shot, but it's the same process. And twirl again, fold it up, and there they are, the 3 ready to go. And you place them in the baking tray. They do tend to stick a little bit sometimes to each other, but not that time. And then turn the oven on to fan forced and the highest temperature. Now this one, it's 250. And then we add 50 to 75 mils of water underneath the paper. And what this is going to do is create steam as the oven heats. And by putting a second baking tray over the top, that'll keep the steam in and stop the tops setting hard in the first bake. So into the oven on the high setting. Place it there. About the middle of the oven's always the best spot, I find. And then we'll set it for 20 minutes. After the 20 minutes are over, you can see the steam coming out there across the screen. Take the top off very carefully. And be careful there because there can be steam trapped under that can burn you. And then you lift the paper and the bread from the tray, remove the tray and put the paper and bread back in. Drop the temperature to 200 degrees C and then set the timer for another 10 minutes. And away you go. Once those 10 minutes are up, this is what you get. Rather very nice. You can see how much they've risen. You take them off the paper and then allow them to cool after you're sure that they're cooked enough. And if we cut it open, just listen to the crunch on that. And there you go. Bread done. Thanks for watching.